Next, let's invite Mr. Ruben Chung, Head of Marketing at Lead, to share with us on why data don't always reveal insights and what to do. Ruben is a growth marketer, entrepreneur, and trainer. He's an expert in business direction and marketing strategy with over 10 years of industry experience.
All right, welcome everyone and welcome to Data Asia. My name is Ruben from Lead, and today I'm going to be sharing with you why data don't always reveal insights. Although we have been taught to think about data all the time, to be data driven, to look at data at every aspect of your business, our business, and also marketing. So I'm going to share you some quick basic insights on this one. It's going to be a simple presentation and leave you with some insights and tips to take on for your business. Okay, so ideally, we want to find that magic in your business. And what I mean by magic, it means the things that you cannot derive out of data, right? I know this is a data talk, it's a conference on data, but let's talk about the opposite sides about data. So I'm going to start off with showing you a quick experiment, call it, right? So as marketers, you probably use some email marketing, right? You send emails to your customers, you send emails to prospects, and you do all sorts of different communications with a marketing strategy, right? Using emails, using messaging on Facebook. So this example here is an email marketing campaign. And if you look at the clicks and opens that I have on my example screenshot here, this is taken from our actual email newsletter, all right? And you see that we have a click which is 2%. That means when someone clicks into that email, we had around 2% click rate. And you can see that we have an open rate of 20%. That means out of all the people we send this email to, they 20% of them open this email. Now, if I were to throw the question back to you, is this a good result? Some people might say this is a good result. It hits the benchmark because the benchmark of email marketing campaigns is 20% open rate. Some people might say, oh, I can get a little bit better. Okay, so I'll leave that answer to in your own minds, right? Think about it. Is it a good result or is it a bad result? 20% open rate and 2% clicks. Right. Now, then we see the number of successful deliveries. So for example, we have sent 763 people in this email. So if this email has gone to 763 people, and out of that, we've gotten 20% clicks. So maybe some of you might say that's a good result. Now let's look at another one. Now for this particular email, we had 85% open rate and a 57% click rate. So is this a good result or is this a bad result? Now, some of you might begin to say, oh, Ruben, can you teach me how to create an email that gets such a high open rate, gets such a high click rate, right? And it's not until I show you the number of people that we send it to, right? So 85% equates to 6 opens and 57% clicks equates to 4 clicks on this particular email. So the reason I'm showing you this data here is to illustrate to you that sometimes data don't reveal the insights that you want. Someone could say they got an open rate of 50%, but how big is their list? Someone could say they got an open rate of 5%, and you might say, oh, 5% is very low, but how big is their email list? And this is one of the very few examples I can show you where data sometimes skews in opposite of our favor, right? Now let's consider another scenario. We have come across cases like this, right? And also examples where people will give you an average. The average net worth of people in this building, let's say in this building, is 100,000. All right. So average is taken by calculating maybe the net worth of every person and then counting an average, a mean out of it. And you might say, oh, the average net worth is 100,000 for people in this building. Now, these data can be skewed again by if, let's say we have maybe 10 people on my screen, right? And let's say the 10% or the 11% in the whole building of average is Bill Gates, right? Now, with one person coming into that equation, that whole average would be skewed again. So sometimes when you see data suggesting that the average something of something is X or Y, it can be something that is skewed. So when you look at data, it's not always accurate in a way. And sometimes data don't actually share the insights that you want or the actual insights to you. So we all have been trained to look at data, talk about data, right? And if you go online, if you go on social media, you'll see articles popping up every single day that talks about how we can use data for our business. So for example, 5 data trends to take your business forward in COVID, and how to use machine learning and AI to move forward with data. So every day it's about data, even if you're in the engineering sector, even if you're in the marketing sector or sales sector, there's somebody would tell you to go back into data and take something out from data, as if data is the way forward for everything. Well, I'm not saying that data is not the way forward, but we have to tread carefully, right? Now take an example, Malaysia's government agencies and more, they are also driving the competency as well, right? And this is a very, very old news from 2017, where MDEC aims to have 20,000 data professionals by 2020. Now it's already 2021 right now, and I'm not too sure whether we have hit that 20,000 data professionals yet. But the point is, we are all in a race for data, right? We are all in a race to get data competencies and abilities in work, and also using it at work, right? But even if we look at something like cryptocurrencies, okay, so we have technical analysts who looks at all these candlesticks, who looks at all these stock charts and more, and yet if you ask a full-time technical analyst, he or she cannot predict the future. So a lot of AI, a lot of looking at data analytics is looking in the back mirror of our car seats. It's looking at what happened before. But when it comes to predicting the future, we can only rely on patterns. We can't really rely on a special prediction engine, because prediction engine is basically made out of patterns that happens in the past, right? And maybe using that patterns, it creates simulations of what might possibly happen in the future. But again, when it comes to stock markets, when it comes to cryptocurrencies or trading, you cannot actually predict the future. Nobody can. Even though they are very, very good technical analysts, they might be able to tell you a few things, but it's not 100% accurate. Now, again, in business, we are always taught to analyze our data. So this comes back to looking at your data analytics in Shopify, Google Analytics, whichever platforms that you use. As a business, you're always told to analyze your data. What is our total sales for today? What is our conversion rate? When we run an ad on Facebook, do we have a 5% cost to lead ratio, or what's our conversion rate? So we're always told to look at numbers. And because if we find a number that works, then we can scale up from there. That's the whole consensus about looking at data, right? So no matter where you are in business, you were always told to look at data. And looking at data, we are also often told to create decisions out from data, basically predictions. So if you look at things like analytics, how many people came in from Google? How many people visited our site from social media? Take that number, right? And if we notice, for example, that a lot of people are finding our site, our products via Google SEO, via Google Organic, then we double down on SEO. But sometimes the truth can be further than what we see. Sure, we might see a lot of people who comes into our site from Google Search Organic results, but sometimes that Google Organic search results can be a result of them seeing an ad or seeing a billboard or getting reminded from a radio ad or somewhere, right? So when we look at data, we always look at it from a linear point of view. If this happened, then that must be something, right? But the real thing behind data is huge. And I'm going to show you a few more examples to really paint this example into your minds. Yeah. So A/B testing. Now, if you're a marketer for some time, if you've done marketing, you definitely came across the strategy to A/B test. Okay, so quick backstory. What is A/B testing? Now, A/B testing is basically putting, like for example, if you have a product on a website, you put the product on a website, you have two pages. One page shows a different button, right? The other page shows a red color button, for example. So in this example, you see one of them have a red button, one of them has a green button. And then what marketers would do is that they would test the difference between two of these buttons, which one would work better. And a marketer might say, after doing an experiment for 1 week or so, he might say, oh, buttons which are green in color, right, gives you a better, higher conversion rate. So every other marketer that sees this study or experiment begins making their buttons green in color. Does that work? Probably not. Now, the problem with A/B testing is people test things that are very, very logical. For example, they test things like 100 ringgit for a product and then a product which is discounted. Now, that is very, very logical. You don't even have to test that. So A/B testing, I like to joke and I like to, in a way, degrade A/B testing is A/B testing with too much of it tends to make your site turn into sort of a porn site. Why? I mean, if you're comparing red buttons versus green buttons, might as well I'll just put in a picture or a photo of a beautiful lady on B and then put an ugly person on button A, right? Eventually, you will turn your site into a porn site because you're enticing people to click on what they want to click, right? But the reason people buy something from you is not because of the colors of your buttons. They buy something from you because of what they receive in value from a product or a service. It's never really too much about what color your button is. Of course, to a certain extent, design is quite important, but then to the extent of testing button colors, probably not. Yeah. All right. So in fact, as users, as individuals, we love data and we love proven methods a lot. And proven methods, formulas, point principles are all backed by data, right? If you think about it. So allow me to give you some quick examples. Now, we love formulas so much that we try finding formulas to succeed, to be successful in life. If you go online, do a Google search, right? You've probably come across, tons of this kind of like formulas and research and all these things, like the 6-step Facebook advertising formula, right? Break down the perfect SaaS landing page. How do you create a great landing page to entice customers and to convert customers? So we're always finding formulas. Well, what's the best formula? What's the best principle? What's the best this and that, right? And a lot of these studies, again, that's not very wrong thing to look at, but a lot of these studies are backed by experiments and also data from people who have done it, okay? Now, in fact, if you go online and search for a formula too, you can see people looking for all sorts of formula. Is there a formula behind becoming wealthy? Is there a simple formula for getting rich? Is there a formula to this and that and that? And yet, as individuals, we know there is no formula to getting rich, right? So why is our love so huge, right? Why is our love so big for formulas? And when I see all these point principles, right, the 6 steps to writing an email marketing campaign, the 6 steps to doing a Facebook ads, I normally laugh at them. Why? Because imagine this, if we were to use formulas in real life. Let's say we have a kid. Let's say you have a kid named Bobby, right? And he would and you would teach him formulas. You will probably come up with things like, oh, Bobby, please skate with one leg. In the next 2 seconds, put up your second leg to the skateboard as well. Go at 10 kilometers per hour, no more than that. So in real life, formulas does not work. I mean, sure, we can actually teach a kid to follow some fundamentals to learning how to skate, right? But we cannot actually give them formulas to succeed. So once they have the fundamentals, whatever they do next is not based or backed by data anymore. What they do is then, in a way, magic, right? It's not so much of following a formula to learn how to skateboard, right? So formulas does not exist, right? They exist as fundamentals. And after that, whatever we do next is totally magic, right? And yet we have someone like this, right? This is, if you do not know him already, is Tony Hawk. Depending on when you were born, Tony Hawk is a professional skateboardist, right? And he seems to have followed no formulas, right? And I'm just want to illustrate to you that, the way to success or the way to doing business is near the same as learning how to skate. There's no really one single formula to doing something, right? When it comes to data as well. So data is simply an indicator. Now, through all the slides I've shown you and through everything I've talked about, I'm not saying that data is something that you shouldn't follow when it comes to your business, when it comes to marketing, or when it comes to doing anything at all. But data is simply an indicator that tells you if something you're doing is correct, if something you're doing or whatever you're doing is going the right way or more, right? But often you have to look at something behind data to identify if whatever you're doing is correct, okay? So following logic sometimes, because data is logic, right? Following logic sometimes will only get you to where your competitors are. And a lot of things that we appreciate in life, a lot of things that were made, like brands that were made up, did not follow logic, did not really follow logic. They were created out of the data. Let me show you some examples, okay? So imagine this scenario. We have a new drink, all right? So this is my company. I want to pitch it to you. We have a new drink. It tastes terrible. It smells horrible and has plenty of sugar. And we're trying to go against the biggest carbonated drink in the world, Coca-Cola. Now, do you want a stake in my new drink? So if you look at data, right? Oh, Coca-Cola has a huge market share. Coca-Cola is loved by so many people. And when you look at their data, come back to my statement here, you probably say, nah, Ruben, I probably don't want to actually buy a stake in your new company and your new drink, right? It does not make sense. There's no data that backs that you can actually succeed in this red ocean market that is dominated by Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Until I tell you that this drink is Red Bull, all right? So when Red Bull came up and started doing their product, right? It does not follow any logic because logically, there's no space anymore in the busy market. But yet, Red Bull today is one of a very highly, drunk drink in the market, right? Let's look at another example. Now, and people, without showing you the picture there, and people will be happy to pay 15 ringgit for a drink that they can make at home for a few cents. And we have Starbucks. So when Starbucks came about, did they follow logic? Did they look at data and say, okay, there is a market for people who wants to buy a coffee that costs 5 to 10 times more expensive than what they can make at home? There's no data that would have suggested that. And yet they went ahead and built a business out from, magic again, right? So it's not so much about data. So if you are a business today looking at only data and making decisions out of data, you might miss out on a lot of opportunities. So the human mind is highly illogical. We don't make decisions based on logic. We make decisions based on a lot of emotions and then back it up by, logic, right? So this is a quick example of how customers make decisions. So our expectations, and in an ideal world, is that a customer would see our Facebook ad. So I'm going to draw this here. Oops. Okay, so a customer would see our Facebook ad, understand the value of the product, and, and buy immediately. Right? So this is the ideal world that we want. So we want our customers to be able to see the value of our product and buy immediately. But in reality, customers are highly illogical. They will go through all the trouble from seeing our Facebook ad, getting down, Googling online, visiting a competitor store, asking a friend, searching a review, pondering on it for the next 6 months, 12 months, 1 year, look at if their favorite celebrities are using a particular product or service. And then after all of that, somehow they'll make a decision, right? So customers don't make decisions based on logic. They make decisions based on funny emotions, on funny realities. So with this in mind, I'm going to show you a few ways or give you a few tips that we can actually turn our business into, use some magic to create some, marketing genius in our business, right? Let me just clear this up. All right, so before I go into the 3 ways to find magic in your business and to show you some ideas, to spark some ideas in your business, let's go into a quick break and we'll come back to talk about these 3 ways. All right, welcome back. And now let's talk about the 3 ways to find magic in your business. So we have set the stage where we talk about how data is important, but sometimes can be a bit skewed as well. So how do you then find ways to overcome that whole data thing, right? So here are 3 ways to find magic in your business. Number 1 is to start analyzing qualitative data. So a lot of us are very used to analyzing quantitative data. So allow me to give you the examples and the differences. So quantitative data is basically measuring data based on numbers, right? So for example, how many people visited our store today? Maybe you would say 100 people visited our store. So that is quantitative data that we can quantify. But when you move into qualitative data, we start analyzing the behaviors of people. All right, so we have 100 people who entered our store, but what did they do, right? What did they see? What did they touch? What did they feel? So that is qualitative data. So in my example here, I give you a few quick examples. How many people visited our website? You might say 100, 1,000, or 10,000. But when we turn into qualitative data, the questions become different. What did visitors look at on the website? Did they look at our button? Did they look at a particular something? Now, quantitative data could be a question like, what is our conversion rate? So 3%, 5%, 10%. Qualitative data, on the other hand, is a question of what make visitors buy after reading the landing page. See, we are asking different questions right now. And luckily, there are ways to actually analyze qualitative data. So with data that gives you quantity, that is our usual platforms like Google Analytics or the numbers you see behind your Shopify dashboard. But when we move into qualitative data, that's when we start looking at video recordings, heat maps, and start studying the behaviors of people who took action within a website digitally or within a store digitally, right? Now, 2 tools that you can actually look at if you are an online business, if you run a business online and you have a website, whether it's on Shopify, WordPress, or any platforms out there, is to use 2 of these tools, right? One is Reactflow and the other is Lucky Orange. Now, these 2 tools allows you to look at videos of what your users do on your site. So it does not cost much. When you install it on your site, what you're able to do is to look at the customer behavior. What do they click? Where do they scroll? It's like looking at a video of a customer browsing your site. So that gives you a lot of different types of insights to what people behaviors are when they use a site or when they browse a product on a web page somewhere. All right, so that's one for you. Switch into qualitative data instead of just looking at numbers, right? That's how you study the behaviors instead of just looking at data that does not tell you that much, in fact. All right, so that's first. And number 2 is to embrace the power of semantics. Now, I know this sounds like a science talk already, but hear me out. Now, semantics just basically relates to what the words basically remains to words that might give different meanings. All right. So the way your customer process words actually changes the way they act. I have examples to show you, so don't worry about learning all this science. Basically, just remember a single word like rose in my example here can have many meanings, right? A rose can mean to be flower, it can also mean people rising up. All right. So let me give you a quick example of how we can use words to encourage value in a particular product or service. And this is not based on data, right? So data can't tell you these things. This is based on magic. So which one is tastier? I'll let you take a look, give you a few seconds. So basically the first one is nasi lemak. And we all know that. We all live in Malaysia, Southeast Asia. You have access to nasi lemak. The second one is fragrant nasi lemak kukus with chef-selected spicy red sauce topped with kampung style berempah chicken. Now, right off the bat, I don't know about you, but a lot of you, I bet, I'm willing to say, would say the second picture, even though it's the same thing, sounds much tastier, right, than nasi lemak. And why is that? Now, this is something that data cannot tell us, right? This is based on semantics. The words that we use sometimes can create different types of decisions in our customers. So make use of your words, right? Let me give you another example. Which one is more effective? Again, this is not so much of semantics, but this is more of a bias, right, that we have as humans. So this is basically painkillers, right? Anadine and also Panadol are basically companies that make painkillers. So one is priced at 670 and the other is priced at 1290. Now, I'm willing to bet that a lot of you would say Panadol would be more effective. And that's a weird thing about our human logical sense. We are illogical. They are both the same thing. But because one of the price is higher, we assume or we perceive that Panadol at 1290 is going to be more effective in curing our headache, right? So this is how we customers is in a way illogical and we don't actually follow data. So data don't tell us how we can actually sell or market to customers. So for you as a business owner or a marketer, embrace semantics, right? Understand that humans and your customers are actually quite illogical. They don't look at things from a logical point of view. All right. All right. So the third step of inducing some magic in your business is to forget the buyer's persona. Now, a lot of marketers will now raise their eyebrows and look at me and say, huh, forget the buyer's persona? So this is a sheet. This customer avatar is basically a buyer persona activity that we do in our courses at Lead. So you can see that we use to actually get our students to imagine who their ideal customers are, right? How old are they? What gender are they? Where do they live in? What are their hobbies? What do they work as, right? And all these things. And basically what we're doing is you're building a buyer's persona, a buyer's biodata, if you call it, right? And the reason why we build this is so that we can use this information as a target information when we run our ads or, do any sort of marketing later. And what I'm telling you to do here is to forget all these buyer's persona. Why? Because sometimes data can skew in this kind of sense. Let me give you a quick example. So a lot of marketers and advertisers would tell you to target via demographics, right? Now let's look at these two gentlemen here in this picture. Now, both of them are born in 1948, okay? Both of them has 2 children. Both of them lives in UK. Both of them are somewhat wealthy, I would say. And both of them also have songs, music songs, quoting them. One of them, if you do not realize or do not know, recognize immediately, is Prince Charles. And the other is Jimmy Choo, the designer of shoes, right? And I'm willing to bet if you were to sell a designer bag, right? And if you were to sell a designer bag, who would buy? I'm willing to bet you say Jimmy Choo is the one who would buy this bag compared to Prince Charles, right? But if we as marketers is going to be just targeting people based on demographics, then we'll be targeting the same exact 2%. And yet, one of them would probably not buy, a designer bag, but the other would. So targeting via demographics by looking at data like, oh, we're targeting someone who is born in 1948, has 2 children, lives in UK, is wealthy, is a CEO. That does not work anymore. So targeting via demographics is a bad idea because people don't buy things based on demographics. It does not make sense whatsoever. So what's the best way to do that? Now, the next thing we're going to do is, if you don't target by demographics, we want to target by psychographics. So again, this is something that data cannot tell you, right? So how do we target by psychographics? Now, psychographics is basically what people think, what is their pain, what is their dreams, right? So there are three things we can ask ourselves. So three questions. If you want to target your customers based on psychographics, number one, triggers. What made your customers say, I want to make progress in my life, and why, very importantly, why right now? What triggers them to make an action, to take an action, to buy something or to look for something? Second, pain. What pain is stopping them from doing what they want to do? Okay, and then third one would be goals. What progress do they want? What is their functional, social, or emotional goals, right? Again, goals can be many different ways. A lot of people like to think about goals as solving a pain, right? But goals can be functional. It can also be a social goal, right? I buy a designer bag because I want to look good. That is a social goal. I bought a gym membership pass because I want to feel good about myself. That is an emotional goal as well. So there's many different types of goals you have to understand about people. And this is a study of psychographics. So we are looking past demographics, we're looking to psychographics. Now, I want to make this simpler for you, because if I give you three questions like this, trigger, pain, and goals, you might find it a little bit hard to identify, how do we find an ideal customer? So I've turned it into a quick statement that you can actually use to find your ideal customer. All right, so trigger, pain, and goals can be condensed into a quick statement like this. When a trigger happens, I want to solve that pain so that I can reach a certain goal. Now, let me give you a quick example. When I watch Gary Vee on YouTube, so that's when the trigger happens, right? I want to get the same engagement as him. Maybe he has a lot of likes, he has a lot of views on his videos. So when I watch Gary Vee on YouTube, trigger, I want to get the same engagement as him. My pain is I do not have enough views on my video, so that I can look like a business leader and feel better about myself. That is my goal. So I'd like you to take this statement and put it in your customers. What is the customers experiencing? What is the trigger that triggers something so that they want to solve a certain pain and so that they can reach a certain goal? What is that in your customers? If you can identify these things, it'll be much easier for you to actually market and sell something to them, that there's something that they really need. All right. So quick recap. I know I've talked a lot about data and also the illogical parts of our human behavior. But quick recap. I know this was a simple presentation, but I hope that you have found a few takeaways of this. So quick recap, more data does not always mean better insights, right? The more data we have sometimes can prevent us from actually looking at things that actually really matters. Now, when you have data, always question the context of data. Someone might say we have a 20% open rate on an email marketing campaign, and that's great. But how big is the list? Who are these people? Are they in different locations? How old are they? You have to get a very huge amount of context before we can make sense of any data out there. Now, number three, there are no proven formulas, even with the amount of data that we have today, and especially in business. There are no proven formulas. There's no way to do it. There's no formulas to actually get you to somewhere you want to be. Number four, data does not lie, but it does not tell everything, right? It cannot tell the illogical sense that we humans have. And your customers are illogical beings. We cannot use decisions made out of data to reach out to them because they're illogical. We have to think of different ways. And on finding magic, on looking at putting some magic in your business, analyze qualitative data. So move away from looking at just numbers, but look at customer behavior. How are they interacting with your product, right? Once they've consumed your product and services, what do they do? That is the important part. Embrace semantics. Semantics, again, is the study of words and how they can derive different meanings. So when I say things like flour or flour, right, in British, flour can mean the flour to make breads. It can also mean the flower in our gardens, right? So semantics is very important. To our advantage as marketers, we can use words to make something appear more valuable. Now, forget buyer personas and focus on psychographics. So the days of demographics and targeting based on someone's age, where they live, what they do, and their hobbies is over. Focus on psychographics by identifying what triggers them, to identify a pain in them, and also what is their goal. All right. And finally, be a little bit more illogical, because that's the way you find a special something within your business. So thank you again for listening to this presentation. I hope you find some insights from it. Now, you can follow me on rubencheng.com. This is a small blog where I write ideas. You can read ideas on marketing and also business. And if you'd like to take courses on data science, machine learning, and AI, and also take a course on marketing, do visit us at thelead.io, where you'll be able to find some courses and also free content that will help you get better at data and also marketing. So thank you again.